Good evening, sir. Can I start, sir?
Kashvi, is it done?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, start.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let us start.
Myself, Dr. Parth Patel, second year resident from General Surgery Department from Tuesday Surgical Unit. Good evening, everyone. My topic is general reading on complications of parotid gland surgery. I choose International Journal of Otolaryngology and Head and Neck Surgery. September 6. Original research article was parotidectomy complication and management. Our experience of Pranabasis Banerjee, B. Chitkar, Gautam Das, Arjit Das, and Apur Ghosh from Department of ENT, NRS Medical College, Kolkata, West Bengal, India. North Bengal Medical College, Siliguri, West Bengal, India. First, brief introduction about parotid gland anatomy and its relation. Parotid gland lies between the mastoid, styloid process, ramus of mandible, surrounded by parotid fascia, which is investing layer of deep fascia. It is basically serous type of gland, produces amylase, water, and immunoglobulin factors, which lubricates and maintain oral hygiene. It has a upper and lower pole, lateral, anterior, and the deep surface. In the gland, facial nerves, retromandibular vein, external carotid arteries, lymph node, fibers of auriculotemporal nerve present. Facial nerve and its branches, which is intraglandular and which is a very important structure during the surgery. The branches are a temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular, and cervical. The relationship of artery, nerve, and the vein are seen. From superficial to deep, nerve is most superficial, then retromandibular vein, then external carotid artery. The part lies superficial to facial nerve. It is superficial parotid gland. Lies deep to facial nerve is a deep parotid gland. The aims and objective of study. The primary aim and objective of this study were to study a different type of parotid surgery done in Department of Otolaryngology and NRS Medical College, Kolkata, and North Bengal Medical College, Darjeeling. Enumerate the different types of pathological entity encountered. Also enumerate the different complications encountered and said complications. Method of study. This is the retrospective observational cohort study from January 2013 to December 2019. The patients were selected from the OPD pool who had attended the swelling around the ear at varying anatomical location, which was clinically as well as cytologically diagnosed as neoplastic parotid swelling, as seen in figure. Meticulous retrospective investigation was done like USG neck, USG guided FNAC, and radio imaging in the form of MRI whenever indicated. USG was done routinely in all the cases, followed by USG guided FNAC to identify the pathology. MRI was done in 3 conditions, especially first when pathology was clinically suspected to involve the deep lobe. Second, when there was a case suspected to have a facial nerve involvement. And thirdly, prior to operative planning in case of the revision surgery. 3 types.
Parth,
Yes, sir.
Parth, wait. So, how many cases the MRI was done?
So they exactly they do not define how many cases they done.
Okay. So the reason is that plan doing this journal reading it to know. So people believe MRI is mandatory or not.
Yes.
So according to them, it was not a mandatory. So understand this is because this is the question which will be asked to you. Means
Yes.
is it necessary to do MRI in all cases or not? Because we are going more toward the investigations which should be done. So this will be the, let us see, and this is the job for others also. Find out what is the recent trend. There should be some other journal which must be suggestive whether the MRI should be done in all cases or only specific cases. Because what we are doing may not be the ideal. Understand this point.
Yes.
And whether in future the one more journal reading may be done on that. So does the doing MRI in all cases will improve your overall or improve and decrease the complication rate or not? Yes? That is the important point we want to discuss. Rest is fine, FNAC and previously there was also a lot of controversy that whether we should do FNAC or not. Why there was a controversy?
Because in malignant swelling, there may be a chance of seeding of malignant cells.
Seedling. It was that was the reason. Basically the principle was that most of the tumor, not malignancy. We should not consider malignancy is the only reason.
Yes.
Basically yourself is, you can say, you will find out that most of the cases are pleomorphic adenoma.
Yes.
So what is so specific about pleomorphic adenoma? So that's what there was a controversy about FNAC.
Pleomorphic adenoma has a pseudopodia-like structure.
Very good. Yes. So
during if there is during enucleation or FNAC, there is a remaining some part or some cells that leads to recurrence of the.
No, it does not lead to recurrence because of that. The principle was that pleomorphic adenoma has a pseudocapsule.
Yes.
So, and even it has been observed that when the superficial paroidectomy was not done and only enucleation was attempted, one, or if there was a breach of the capsule and complete recovery was not achieved, their recurrence rate was very high. And the most important point, when recurrence occurred, it was more likely to be malignant. That was the fear in everybody's mind. So if that thing is going to happen, if we implant the cells in a normal parotid, the chances are that the patient can have a recurrence and it will be high recurrence. Now we are not, why we are doing FNAC in all cases? What is the reason? The principle is that ideally speaking, again, it should be a USG guided.
Yes, sir.
Unless it is very large tumor, most of the time, sometimes you are not sure where the tumor is. So that way, if it is in superficial gland, the part which has implanted, if at all, theoretically, by FNAC will also be removed, because the minimum surgery we do is a superficial parotidectomy. That's why FNAC, there is no controversy. You must do it. USG, no controversy. The point is that MRI, it is definitely better than CT as far as parotid is concerned, because we are dealing with more of the soft tissue. There is no, and particularly nerve and everything visualization is much better. So as far as I believe present scenario, they are right. MRI is done in selected cases, right? Not in all cases. One is when you are suspecting in deep lobe. What you have written is absolutely right. Second, when there is a rapid growth of the tumor. Third, the size of tumor is more than 5-6 centimeter, where the chances of surrounding. Fourth, the loss of curtain sign, involvement of facial nerve.
Yes.
These are the, and presence of multiple lymph node, which suggests it might be malignant. In those cases, there is a definite role of MRI. One should do it in those cases, right?
Yes.
One example is the patient is having tumor since 5-10 years.
Yes.
And comes to you with very slow growing. You may avoid doing MRI, but the same patient comes that I have a tumor since 10 years and it has doubled in last 1 year. That is the indication of doing MRI. You are right. This is the basically for complication and not the journal reading on investigation. So you are justified in that. Just my interest, I wanted to know, did they consider MRI as a part of that? So you should consider that whether the particular investigation help the patient to reduce the chance of that. Like the people, if you go back from journal, all the people decided that enucleation is definitely much inferior than superficial parotidectomy. Please continue.
Three types of surgical procedure were defined as superficial parotidectomy, total conservative parotidectomy, and total parotidectomy. The superficial parotidectomy was 83.9%. Total parotidectomy was 10.7%. Total conservative parotidectomy 10.7%, and total parotidectomy 0.01%. Recurrent surgery was 0.03%.
Okay. So what I would like to ask you is,
yes, sir.
So what is the define this surgery? Have they defined what was done in each surgery? Because many of your colleagues may not be able to appreciate what is difference between total conservative parotidectomy and total parotidectomy.
Into the superficial parotidectomy, Only
It is very clear. Superficial parotidectomy is not a question. It is time tested, a definite surgery in 90, here 83, but 80 to 90% of cases, it is the treatment of choice and it is never an issue. You remove all parotid anterior to facial nerve.
Yes, sir.
That is what is known as the fasciovenous plane of Patty. You remove everything. That is a typical superficial parotidectomy.
Yes.
What is total conservative parotidectomy and total parotidectomy?
In total conservative parotidectomy, conservation of facial nerve is done. So superficial and deep lobe removed, but facial nerve and its branch are preserved. In total parotidectomy, along with the facial nerve is also removed.
Okay, that is the, and that's why you should be able to say total parotid. There is nothing like a total radical parotidectomy.
Yes.
Actually, that is the one more term which is coined, but there is nothing like a total radical parotidectomy. Either it is a total parotidectomy with removal of nerve or nerve preserving total parotidectomy. Okay.
The inclusion criteria of study are any parotid neoplasm not having comorbidities, so that and surgical, so that does not contradict into the surgical treatment, and non-inflammatory parotid swellings. The exclusion criteria are inflammatory parotid swelling, patient unfit for surgery, and parotid malignancy with distant metastasis. They use the steps in parotidectomy. After appropriate painting and draping, modified Blair incision was made and smash flap was done. A superficial muscular aponeurotic system. Smash is a fibrous network that invades the facial muscle, connect them with the dermis, platysma inferiorly, zygomatic arch superiorly, and a parotid filter.
Parth again.
Yes, sir.
In all cases, it was a modified Blair incision.
So in this study, they use modified Blair incision in all cases, sir.
All cases.
Yes,
all
sir.
cases. So there was only one incision.
Yes, sir.
For our interest, which other incision are used usually?
Facial lift incision anterior to anterior to tragus may be used. Then cyst trunk incision may be used.
So what is difference between Blair and cyst trunk?
Don't know, sir.
So the usually what happens when you see that what is seen in the this your figure, what is the incision typical?
A lazy S incision, sir.
Yes, or it is also known as a lazy S incision. When you put a cyst trunk, it is a more of a triangular type of incision. Understand this point. So chances of flap necrosis were higher up. So that some Blair was the first modification. Again, the Blair was or you can call it modified Blair is a more of a lazy S, whereas the Blair itself is a S incision like that. So most of the time we put now modified Blair incision. We used to put a cyst trunk incision in past. Now we have stopped putting it. So why this incision is needed apart from this journal reading? What is so specific? You have said anatomy, right? You have showed anatomy?
Yes, sir.
Go back to that slide of anatomy. If you have got it, I think I saw it. Yes, yes. Go back. Yes. So what do you think? Not actually true sense it is, but remember there are two areas where you should be very careful when you put an incision. One is you have seen accessory gland or gland along the duct. When you perform the superficial parotidectomy, the gland up to duct is always to be removed. So we elevate the anterior flap up to zygomatic muscle. Similarly, the part of the parotid is behind the ear, near the mastoid. If you do not put if you put a straight incision or a more triangular incision, you may miss the superficial part of parotid, which is going behind the ear.
Yes.
Right? Other reason is it also helps to save the posterior great auricular nerve partially. So that way, this incision, because the loss of sensation is minimized in this case. Continue. Go.
Tragal pointer and tympanomastoid suture was considered as a landmark point, and antegrade dissection of the facial nerve was done. The tumor, if confined to the superficial lobe, was defined, and tumor along with the remnant of the superficial lobe was removed, taking care not to injure the branches of the facial nerve. For tumors involving the deep lobe, total conservative periodictomy was done. Once the mobilization was complete, fine vascular sling was placed beneath the facial nerve and gently retracted. Retromandibular vein was appropriately ligated whenever required. Total periodictomy with sacrifice of the facial nerve was considered in few cases when patient had a significant operative facial nerve palsy and preoperative radio imaging confined involvement of the facial nerve trunk. Suction drain was placed and smash flap was replaced back. Closure done into the two layers by 30 Vicryl and 30 ethylene. All the statistical analysis were done using MS Excel and IBM SPSS statistical software. So this is a slide showing the various steps.
Okay.
Result in this study operated upon 47 patients over the duration of 7 years, covering the 2 medical colleges in West Bengal. Out of 47 patients were male patients, 30 patients were male and 17 patients was female. The lowest age in our series was 22 years and the oldest age is 69 years. Age distribution and a sex distribution of the operated patient seen into the figure. In the first diagram is suggestive of the on x-axis there is a percentage of the surgery. On the x-axis there is a age distribution and on the y-axis there is a percentage of the surgery. The highest surgery was done between the 41 to 50 years of the age. Into the male-female ratio, male was 63.8% and the female 36.2%. Histological evolution of 47 cases revealed the following details. Histological evolution in histopathology, pleomorphic adenoma in 34 cases, Warthin's tumor in 4 cases, parotid cyst in 1 case, parotid hemangioma in 1 case, mucoepidermoid carcinoma in 3 cases, adenocarcinoma in 1 case, adenoid cystic carcinoma in 2 cases, and carcinoma X pleomorphic adenoma in 1 case.
Just a minute, Parth. Look at this. For all the resident, I would like to, I think there is a minimum presence today. I don't know whether it is a corona effect or not. Last time there were more than 30. Anyway, the point what I want to say is, what does it show you, this distribution? The importance of journal reading. Sometimes you should not take any reading on a face value. What do you see here?
In this distribution, we can, during our differential diagnosis, we can put most common cases first. And
No. Yes, agreed. But what does this table shows you? That is why we read a journal. We can understand what is going on. So what does this slide show you?
Most common lesion is pleomorphic adenoma.
Excellent. Right. So it goes without saying most common condition is that. Right. One more thing I want from this. How many of these were benign and how many were malignant?
In this mucoepidermoid carcinoma is malignant. Adenocarcinoma.
No. The percentage. Have you got that table? Remember, what does the literature say? Out of parotid tumor or a menioplasm, how many percentage are benign? That is what the journal reading is all about.
Yes. According to literature, 25% are malignant, 75% are benign.
Okay, very good, excellent. 75 to 80%. That is one. Does this criteria is fixing here or not?
Yes, sir.
No, I think percentage is little less here. You can see that 3, 4, 3, 7 is a 14%, 12%, 13%, if you approximately. So the point why it is said, so there is always going to be a percentage difference. Understand my point. What I want to say is, whatever the literature say 20%, 25%, it should be always a range. Yes. Why so? Why it is like this? Suppose we do our case, we will also find the same thing. What do you say it is? Why it is so? That is how you read the journal and conclude it. Why it is like this?
Maybe a
that is what we call is a bias. What is bias?
Some points we missing and that
no, we don't miss anything. We have done, this is the histopatho report. But why bias? What is bias? To understand the point, you should from beginning, where was it done?
West Bengal.
West Bengal, sir.
But which medical college? Do you
Uh,
understand?
Yes, sir. NRS Medical College.
So it must be a general surgical and ENT department.
Yes, sir.
So what a bias, same bias will happen here. If we take a cases, we prefer to take cases which are more likely to be malignant and benign. And if we find the malignant cases where the ulceration has occurred, fungation has occurred, nerve is involved, or very large tumor reaching up to base of the skull, we try to avoid. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So whenever you do this kind of journal reading, do not take the percentage from histopatho report. That is always biased. Ideally, speaking, it should be population based. That means in last 5 years, we have read 70 cases. How many of them were benign? How many of them were? That is the actually. When you say post-operatively, there can be bias of a institute, bias of a surgeon. Some surgeon will not operate malignant cases. Some surgeon will not like to operate the malignant case and will send it away. So there is always, that is what is the percentage of bias is always likely to be there. Like in this case, this is probably done in some benign institute where the general surgery is being ENT and general surgery. The chances are that some cases might not have been included. You cannot help it. That is what it is known as a bias, which is okay, acceptable. You understand this point?
Yes, sir.
From that also, second point, you understand, even if there is a bias, there is a definite evidence which suggests that 15% of cases you operate can be malignant.
Yes.
That is what you should understand. So if you see a parotid tumor, at least 15-20% chances are there, even though you are suspecting it to be benign, cannot turn out to be malignant. One. Second point you understand is most of the benign tumor are pleomorphic adenoma. So what is significance of that? It means that superficial parotidectomy is a minimum surgery. Otherwise, if you considering it to be benign and if you do only excision biopsy, it can recur and recurrence will be very bad. Third point you see is Warthin tumor. What is the normal percentage of Warthin tumor?
5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. Usually 5%, maximum 10%. So here it is justified, right?
Yes.
What are the chances of bilateral Warthin tumor?
10%, sir.
10%. Have they done it included any mention of that or no? No,
No, sir.
I don't think so. So because sometimes you may find the study when they have done bilateral surgery also.
Yes.
Here, why it is not there? You have said it in your exclusion criteria. What was your exclusion criteria?
Yes, sir.
Go back and read.
Inflammatory parotid swelling.
Yes. So common causes of bilateral parotid swelling is inflammatory. Either it is a parotitis or autoimmune parotitis, where usually surgery is random, rarely done, and if required bilateral, so they are not included. So except Warthin, very rarely you will find any other neoplastic tumor where you need to do bilateral. That's of exclusion criteria.
Yes.
Go. Continue.
Yes, sir. All the patients were carefully monitored in post-operative period and data was carefully recorded. Patients were followed up to 6 weeks post-operatively in all the cases in order to monitor for any delayed post-operative complication. The post-operative complication which we encountered are mentioned as hematoma formation and infections are the common complication of every surgery, so they are not considered separately. The distributions of
remember, this is again an important point. When you see any journal, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
This was a more a general. This is a way you can call it a widespread. You have chosen that it includes all complication. So when you are preparing a paper or you want to present what should be your, for this is for all of you, what you should understand, you be more specific. This is more of a dissertation type of, understand? This is more of a dissertation type of paper, which is actually not very good, but fine. You can, and these papers are accepted. So what I want all of you to understand this, what we are doing is much, much more than, I think in last 5 years, we have operated definitely apart from COVID, more cases than what they have operated. And this is not extraordinary. But so the principle is that you should aim at the one or two part of it. Do not include all complication. If you take a 47 and if you include hematoma and infection, what will happen?
Complication rate increases.
It will increase and it does not serve any purpose. So specific complication confined to parotid area should be included. That is a very important point, that is you should remember when you are writing paper.
Yes.
That you should be pointed to some specific conclusion you want to reach. Even this is little more. Sometimes what you can choose is, you can choose a paper like that, incidence of transient facial palsy in operated case of superficial parotidectomy.
Yes.
That will give you exact idea. If you include total parotidectomy, there will be bias of total surgery, where you will handle the facial nerve more and chances of transient paralysis is very high. Or you can say incidence of Frey syndrome in parotid surgery. Yes. Incidence of parotid fistula or a salivary fistula in parotid surgery, like that. This is the better way to write a paper. This is what I want to impress upon you, because you will need to write all this. You should understand this. Okay, continue.
The distribution of the complication encountered, facial palsy, patient 19 patient, percentage 44.4 patient, facial palsy permanent 2 patient 4%, Frey syndrome 8.5%, scar abnormality there is a 3 patient 6.4%, greater auricular nerve injury 19 patient 40%, flap necrosis 6 patient 12.8 percentage, and seroma 3 patient 6%.
Okay, very good. So what do you conclude? Again, you need to read the result. That will help you. So what does it tell you? Chintan is there or not? Chintan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So were any question asked about this to you yesterday? Yesterday I had to leave because of my problem, personal.
No, sir. No question from particularly this region, but the complications were asked, sir. And yes, sir told about the 5F for the complications, sir.
What did he tell?
I think sir told about 5F of the complications, sir, like the flap necrosis, facial transient palsy, Frey syndrome, and all that. See, he discussed about the only complications,
okay,
sir.
Okay. The point here is that 19, it is 44%. What does it tell you?
Most common complication is facial nerve, facial nerve palsy. And
no, that is right. No, facial nerve palsy, no. Word which is most important is
transient.
Transient. What does it mean?
Means in 44.4%, approximately 45 to 50% patient
yes,
after parotidectomy
very good,
develop facial nerve, transient facial nerve palsy.
Sorry, I did not hear you because my connection is little down. Yes. Please repeat it.
Approximately 45 to 50% of the patient after parotidectomy develop facial nerve, transient facial nerve palsy.
Okay. So what does it tell you? But I want to know that. What does it tell you? This almost 50%.
Yes, sir.
So two things. If you are operating case of parotid, be ready for facial nerve palsy. One. Second, there is additional questions which need to be answered. That is what I was going to discuss, is use of, was nerve stimulator used or not? That you should have read in that. Third is, which kind of anesthesia was given? Was muscle relaxant given or it was withheld? Why? The reason for that?
Nerve stimulator is used and muscle relaxant is given, then maybe a chance of false negative, sir.
No. False, forget about that. I am talking for operative use of that. Remember, these are the two things which are very useful for us. Though we do not follow nerve stimulator, people have said the cause of transient facial nerve palsy is same. Whether you use nerve stimulator, you do not use nerve stimulator. It can be only useful to prevent the permanent facial nerve pulse. You understand? Transient, it will not decrease, because for nerve stimulator we use, you will have to touch it. Understand? So there is no definite advantage for a transient. Second, when we are operating a case of, most of the cases is a benign parotid tumor, permanent facial palsy is rare. If you are a good parotid surgeon, we will not include bias of a, means in a bias of that who is a surgeon, experience of surgeon, institute, malignant institute, or that, because they are very likely to be more radical. So this should be kept in mind. And what is the importance of muscle relaxant?
No, sir.
What is significance of use of muscle relaxant? You should understand that is actually anesthetic should be with you, and when we are dissecting the facial nerve, if muscle relaxant is given, use of nerve stimulator is useless.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes so. And second is when you are not using nerve stimulator and no muscle relaxant, when you will touch the nerve or the cautery is used near nerve, there will be twitching. So identification is good. So many surgeons and anesthetists, they believe that when we are operating a case of parotid, we should not use muscle relaxant, at least at the time of dissection of facial nerve. If muscle relaxant is not given, you may identify the nerve easily. And when you see any other case, be careful. Most of the time, you will be able to see the twitching when you go near the nerve. But we are operating mainly the cases which are benign, so usually it will be transient. One of the thing I have read, Patty. What is the importance of Patty in parotid?
Fasciovenous plane of Patty's.
You know that he is the pioneer of parotid surgery.
Yes, sir.
He was a British surgeon. I will give you one anecdote. He has written himself that as a parotid surgeon, he was called upon to operate upon Queen Elizabeth II for parotid tumor. With all due care, they identify all the nerves and Queen developed post-operative facial nerve palsy. We lasted for 1.5 months to 2 months. So the point here is that in a base transient facial palsy is very much likely in a 40-50% of cases. Yes. So the moral of story is that if you identify the main trunk and major 5 trunk, chances of recovery of facial nerve is near 100%. You should understand this point. He has also written that this has happened for 2 months, not a once Queen asked what has happened. That is a good kind of patient. Anyway, okay. So permanent, have they mentioned in which patient there was a permanent?
Specifically not mentioned, sir.
What surgery not done? Not given?
No, sir.
Okay. So I think as sir already said that.
So they have not mentioned that.
Yes, sir.
You understand my question?
Yes, sir.
Have they specified which patient had developed?
No, sir. They not specifically. They don't mention, sir.
So another way, let me ask the question. In patient parotid, total parotidectomy was done?
Sorry, sir.
There is some percentage. I think one patient, was it done in one patient or something like that?
No, sir.
You have written something. So that there are 3 types of surgery which were done. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, sir. Yes, sir. Go back. Go back. Decide yes, sir, or no, sir.
How many?
Go back to that slide.
How
Material and method.
We are done.
Total parotidectomy
Yes,
is
yes.
0.01%, sir.
Go back.
So that
Again,
is-
go back. Go back. You know, what is that? That's what I want to know. If patients are 47, how will you have a 0.01%?
That is 1 of 100. So that is not possible.
So it was done or not done? I understood it. So you should see, they must have written actually total parectomy was done in any patient or not. And how many patients underwent total conservative parotidectomy, where the chances of permanent injury is much more. You know it or not? I don't know.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is also you have to see what you are looking for. Go back now to complication, because our topic is complication. Go back, go further, go further. Go. One back, complication, back.
Yes.
Okay, so understand, when you have written, see the two parotid, ideally, if you are writing a good paper, you should show the 19 I can understand in which particular two cases this injury occurred. They must have written, whether you have seen it or not, I don't know. But that is an important point, and that will help you for us to know complications are common when you are attempting total parotidectomy of a facial nerve permanent palsy. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So that is important. Fraze syndrome, what he has shown is much higher ratio. Actually, it is not that common. Chintan, what are the percentage of Fraze syndrome as a complication? चिंतन जतो રહ્યો લાગે છે પોતાનું પૂતળું મૂકે હા તો બોલ ને જવાબ તો આપ હા તો અડધા પૂતળા મૂકીને જતા રહે એવા છે બધા. So you must have read, because you are preparing a case of parotid. What are the percentage of that? What are the percentage of Fraze syndrome according to literature? When you read any journal, keep this thing in your mind, so you will understand it better. So what is the common previous literature say the percentage of Fraze syndrome, and what is percentage in this case? I think in this case it is much higher. 4 cases mean I think 8.5.
Yes, sir.
It is a 8.5% of Fraze syndrome. In my life, I have think 4-5 cases only. It's not that common. It's not a common for that.
Yes, sir.
So understand this point, that it is sometimes this is again a bias. So what is Fraze syndrome?
It is a gustatory sweating while while eating, or with the sense of the or the smell of the food. There is a flushing and sweating at angle of the mandible and in the area below the ear. It is called as a Fraze syndrome.
And cause of Fraze syndrome
is because of the aberrant innervation of the parasympathetic supply of the sweat gland, parasympathetic supply of the salivary parotid gland to the sweat gland that is normally supplied by sympathetic system.
No, the why Fraze syndrome develop after parotid surgery?
Mostly because of the gland parenchyma directly attach, directly contacts with the flap, make upper flap of the skin
yes
flap.
So it is something to do with the, you can call, not a, what you were saying, word you use, I forgot the word you have used for that.
Aberrant innervation.
Aberrant. It is not aberrant. It can call abnormal post-operatively. Pre-operatively there is not there.
Yes.
And why the Fraze syndrome is rare? Common cause is, how does the secretomotor fibers are supplied?
By the auriculotemporal nerve. By the auriculotemporal nerve.
Via auriculotemporal nerve is fine, but fibers come from somewhere else. I think you had shown that. Go show that slide. I think you have said it. Go back. Go further. આગળ પાછળ નહીં લે, આગળ ફોરવર્ડ હજુ જો go ahead. આગળ yes. So this is what, so you show it how it has developed. You can understand it. This is for everybody, and it is not just to you just speak it out and everybody goes it. Explain it what you have shown here.
In the upper part, the normal parasympathetic fiber goes to the parotid gland. It is a fiber of auriculotemporal nerve.
No, it is actually come lesser superficial petrosal nerve, which comes and join the auriculotemporal nerve. So actually fiber comes through lesser superficial petrosal, then it conjoins with the auriculotemporal nerve and supply the secretomotor fiber.
Yes, sir.
And there it is parasympathetic fiber comes from a glossopharyngeal ganglion. Okay, then
after the surgery, while the gland is directly contact with the skin, the pathway that supply the new innervation develops that supply.
yes, the word what I not aberrant, new innervation or a newly developed. It's a very simple thing. If you are not careful and leave behind parotid in constant touch with the skin, there will be new innervation of the skin from the cut parotid gland. So when the patient takes anything or there is a reflex develop, ideally, according to normal reflex, there should be secretion of saliva. You understand?
Yes.
But here, because of new innervation, it will irritate the skin and gives rise to all the typical features of sympathetic overactivity.
Yes, sir.
You should understand. It's a very simple thing. Excessive sweating, redness, pain. That is a classical Fraze syndrome. It is, you can say, pathways are crossed because of the surgery. It is never a pre-operative. It is always a post-operative. And that is one more reason you should do meticulous superficial parotidectomy. Okay. So very simple thing. The which was supplying the parotid also supplied to skin and causes all these problems.
Yes, sir.
Crosswire, you can call it. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Next slide. Next slide. Yes, very good. No, बरोबर तू उतावळ नाही करीस. Go up. We are talking of Fraze. Yes. Go back. Yes. This is a very excellent slide. This is the classical known as a Fraze syndrome. Many a time patient comes to you at that time, there is no redness, nothing, because it is a transient and it will disappear. So if patient complain anything like this, what you should be doing is that create the environment when the Fraze syndrome will reappear. That should be kept in mind, right?
Yes, sir.
Just sweating and flushing area of parotid. Very good. Go back to complication now. So here it is very high ratio. It is never that high ratio, I would say. Okay. Right? The scar abnormality we can understand. Kind flap necrosis, seroma. That is a common thing. Go up further now. Yes.
Limitations
Describe
of the
this.
study. Limitations of the study. Of any study, lack of the proper control group and small size of the sample are the two most important limitation of the study. The method they used to measure the facial dysfunction was the House-Brackman facial nerve grading system, which already widely used and well documented in literature, may present in intra-observer variation since it is a subjective scale. They did not use the nerve monitor, which theoretically may reduce the incidence of the facial nerve complication. In this series, 47% male gem female were in the ratio of the 30 gem 17, that is 1.7 gem 1, which is close to 1.3 gem 1 as noted in similar study recently by Bhagwan et al. In the same series, pleomorphic adenoma was noted in 78% of the cases, followed by mucoepidermoid carcinoma in 13% and Warthin's tumor in 6.6% of the cases.
Okay.
In this series, they too found pleomorphic adenoma to be the most common of all the tumor, accounting for 72% of the cases, followed by Warthin's tumor 8% and mucoepidermoid carcinoma 6% of the cases. They found parotid hemangioma in one of the cases, which is in fact an extremely rare neoplasm. Facial nerve palsy. in this series they encountered a transient facial nerve palsy in 21 out of 47 patients.
Again, go back. Sorry, beta. Go back little
Yes,
bit.
yes.
Okay. એટલે મેડમ દેખાય તું તો રાહુલ ગાંધી જેવો થઈ ગયો. Anyway. So point here is that you should all remember, this is a very important slide as far as I believe. Sometimes in exam, they ask you incidence of benign, incidence of Vardin. This is more or less normal. And in that, remember, if somebody asks you mucoepidermoid carcinoma is the commonest.
Yes.
That is, do not forget, if you see this slide, you will always remember, because the examiner is bound to, which is the commonest malignancy in parotid. This is the slide you should remember. Vardin is 4 to 6%, fine, no issue, right? And 80% are benign tumor, right? Okay. Again, the one hemangioma is not an extremely rare neoplasm. I wanted, Dr. Manoj Bhai, would you like to say anything? Dr. Talrej, I think I can see your name.
No, sir. Thank you, sir. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. I think we wanted to share something. Anyway, the point what I want to impress upon is that hemangioma is definitely one of the differential diagnoses. Yes. Similarly, another differential diagnosis which may come in some studies is a lipoma. It is more common than hemangioma. So it should be subclassified as the rare tumors in a parotid. Though rare, lipoma parotid is also a known thing, and sometimes pleasant surprise is there. Go ahead.
Facial nerve palsy in 21 out of 47 patients, which account for 45% of the cases. This percentage appears variable in different series. Bhagwan et al. Reported an incidence of 20.8% post superficial periodicectomy and incidence of 83.3% post total conservative periodicectomy. This was in contrast to a higher incidence of 77.2% after 1 week post-op and an incidence of 51.9% after 4 week post-operative, as reported by Casio et al. In 2018. The facial nerve palsy do not appear to have any correlation with factors like age, sex, side, or the duration of the symptoms. The surgical expertise and the nature of the tumor were the only variable factor which appears to influence the outcome. Revision surgery definitely appears to increase the chance of peroperative facial nerve injury due to adhesions, which is expected to be due to primary surgical intervention.
Okay, continue. Yes. So the commonest cause he has written, which is very important, that is, yes. No, go back. The last.
Yes, sir. The incidence of the facial nerve paralysis is higher with the total than the superficial periodicectomy, which may be related to stretch injury or a result of the surgical interference with vasa nervosum.
The last paragraph.
Nerve stretching is the most probable cause.
Yes.
Some studies have demonstrated that nerve elongation of 6%. Because of this stress trend, it can cause the perineurium tears and result in loss of the compound action potential. Use of the nerve monitoring was not done in any of the case in this series.
Exactly. Do you understand? They have to mention it. So you do any study of complication of facial nerve, whether a nerve stimulator and nerve monitoring, which include both nerve stimulator or the non-relaxant anesthesia.
Yes.
Do you understand? So
yes.
That should be kept in mind. This is the commonest cause, and we come across number of cases, which is very important. Facial nerve transient palsy is very common thing after parotid surgery. Less after superficial, but more after total. Okay.
The House-Brackman scale, which used in this study.
Yes, describe it for the residents. Yes.
The grade 1 is a normal facial function in all the nerve branches. Grade 2, mild dysfunction, slightly weakness on close inspection. Eyes complete closure with minimum effort. Mouth slightly asymmetry. 3, moderately dysfunction, obvious but not disfiguring facial asymmetry. Eyes complete closure with effort. Mouth slightly weakness with maximum effort. 4, moderately severe, asymmetry is disfiguring and or obviously facial weakness. Eyes incomplete eye closure and mouth asymmetrical with maximum effort. Severe dysfunction 5, only slightly barely noticeable movement. Eye incomplete closure and mouth slight movement. 6, total paralysis, no facial function at all. Facial nerve paralysis was found undoubtedly the most common complication they encountered in this series, 44.6%, followed by the greater auricular nerve injury resulting in post-oral paresthesia. Out of 21 patients who developed a facial nerve palsy, 17 patients had the grade 3 palsy, 2 patients has the grade 4, and the 1 patient each had the grade 5 and the grade 6 palsy respectively. They were treated by conservative management with only 2 patients having permanent palsy who incidentally had the grade 5 and the grade 6 palsy on initial assessment. Preoperative injury could be appreciated during the course of the dissection in both the cases which developed permanent palsy. In one of the cases, the tumor was densely adherent with the nerve and inadvertent injury was occurred. During the other case, during the course of the dissection of one of the branch, marginal mandibular branch was the facial nerve was most commonly involved branch in almost all the cases in this series.
Why? Reason?
During the incision, the marginal
Yes.
mandibular branch, it is the most common encountered.
Why? So all the incision of parotid surgery, the anterior part or lower part should not extend beyond the angle of mandible, and it should end at least 2.5 centimeter below. Otherwise, chances of injury to marginal mandibular is very high.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Have they said anything about the histopathology in these patients?
No, sir. They just says about intra-op finding of 2 patients who have the permanent facial nerve injury. Otherwise, no comparison between histopathological report and facial nerve palsy.
No, but this means that both the patients in which that was complete palsy, they were done only superficial perocardium. It looks like this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Next complication is injury to greater auricular nerve. The second most frequent complication they encountered in this series is manifested as the impaired sensation around the ear lobule on the affected side in 40% of our in these cases. According to the few authors, preservation of the posterior branch of the greater auricular nerve may help in preservation of the sensory function. However, the true meaning of preserving of the greater auricular nerve is controversial, and some authors argued that its preservation during the parotid surgery is unnecessary. In this series, they did preserve the posterior division and appreciate the result for the same.
So what is your take in this? Yeah, you have written it, controversial. What does it mean?
Posterior division of greater auricular nerve should be preserved.
So what are their findings? You have written completely. That is an appreciated result. What is it?
It means the complication rate is less or no complication while preserving the posterior branch.
But what complication?
The paresthesia or loss of the sensation into the region which is supplied by greater auricular nerve.
So here was that preservation of sensation in whom they preserve the posterior branch?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yes, it is nowadays not a controversial issue that if possible, you should preserve the posterior branch of great auricular nerve. There is no doubt about it. The only point is that according to its division, this figure doesn't show it, that it is very difficult to preserve the posterior branch. Sometimes parotid is overlapping it. So there is an argument, and the amount of sensation loss is very minimal, and most of the patient never appreciate it. But yes, if possible, you should preserve the posterior branch. The anterior branch is not possible to preserve because it is go in the superficial parotid cleft.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Next complication is parotid fistula.
Yes.
In this study, 6 out of 47 cases, accounting for 13% of the total number of the cases, develop fistula. Though all the cases were associated with the flap necrosis and responded by conservative management, but other modes of the therapy needed a brief mention. Various forms of the treatment have been described for the parotid gland fistula, including tympanic neurectomy with or without coda tympani section, radiotherapy, and even a completion of the parotidectomy. Tympanic nerve section may have a low success rate, however, and it could take a long time to achieve a healing of the fistula.
Okay.
Stefferi et al. First proposed the treatment of the salivary fistula and psilocin after the conservative treatment failure with botulinum toxin. The localized cholinergic block achieved with the botulinum toxin A injection avoid the side effect caused by the systemic anticholinergic drugs and avoid surgical risk. Inhibition of the parotid secretion leads to the temporary block of the salivary flow followed by the glandular atrophy, thus allowing the healing of the fistula. The method seen into the figure, 27 gauge needle with 0.1 cc syringe is used for giving botulinum A toxin injection. Intradermal injection with a strength of 2.5 unit per 0.1 cc is given. 3 to 4 points are indicated before starting the procedure with a minor starch iodine test. They give every 0.4 cc. Total was 40 to 100 cc, 40 to 100 unit of botulinum A toxin can be given.
Why it becomes successful?
Yes.
Did they give in any case in this series?
Specifically, they don't mention, sir.
But all healed conservatively. That is what I understand from that. So what is your conclusion from that?
Most of the fistulas are glandular type of the fistula.
Yes, understand. Whenever you do superficial, remember, actual parotid duct fistula is traumatic, either iatrogenic or real trauma. Whereas the post superficial parotidectomy usually is gland fistula from deep parotid gland. Why gland fistula occurs? The most of the time reason is that when you do superficial parotidectomy, most of the cases you also cut the parotid duct. So the salivary gland supply of the deep parotid is hampered.
Yes.
The amount of deep parotid is very small. Patient may develop slight psilocyl commonly, or which is considered seroma, and usually it get atrophied. But
Yes.
when the superficial parotidectomy is not completed, or the one major duct is opened up, or the gland which is left behind is larger, so once in a while, gland parotid fistula is common after parotidectomy. And most of the time, they respond to conservative treatment.
Yes, sir.
The botulism gives a good result. Similarly, you can also inject the sclerogen.
Yes, sir. Fraze syndrome, an important.
I think we have discussed it. Go further.
Yes, sir.
Yes, discuss this surgical treatment. Yes.
Surgical treatment was a sympathectomy, tympanic neurectomy, sternocleidomastoid transfer, and dermis fat graft, and the use of the various material as interpositional barrier. But the outcome of this technique has been disappointing since only temporary relief is achieved. Better results have been reported with some prophylactic measures, including the use of the superficial musculoaponeurotic system, SMASH as a flap, or a superficial temporal artery facial flap. More recently, good results have been obtained with the local injection of botulinum toxin. The gustatory sweating usually ceases in the treated area within 48 to 72 hours. No significant adverse effect have been described. Only transient paresis of the orbicularis oculi or orbicularis oris is seen in very few cases.
Okay, good. So this is if you understand the treatment, you understand the cause. We want something in between the gland and skin gland. That's it. So the another point is that if you create a good flap, must at least have a good amount of fat and superficial facial nerve, it will be easier.
Yes, sir. Next is flap necrosis. Flap necrosis with parotid fistula was an important deliberating post-operative complication which they encountered in 6 cases. The skin flap necrosis developed at the tortuous band adjacent to the tip of the mastoid. If the incision was made in such a manner that the sharp band could be avoided, that resulted in a significant reduction in flap necrosis. All the patients in this series were treated by a conservative treatment by regular pressure dressing to treat the parotid fistula. Anticholinergic medication was given in 3 of the patients and all respond well. Next complication is seroma. Seroma developed in 3 of the patients and clinically it were indistinguishable from the psilocyle, collection of the saliva from partially resected parotid gland beneath the flap. They were appropriately treated by repeated aspiration and pressure dressing. The conclusion, in this study, parotid pathologies were encountered more in male, which required surgical management. Highest parotid cases were encountered in the age group of 41 to 50 years. Most common histopathology was pleomorphic adenoma. The most common complication, different grades and the type of facial nerve palsy. Parotidectomy of the various types are surgical procedure done frequently by both the Department of ENT as well as Department of General Surgery. The extent of the surgical surgery depends on the preoperative FNAC, clinical and radiological assessment, and nothing can replace the expertise and anatomical knowledge of a skillful and expertise parotid surgeon. This result of the study is compared with surgical complication its management after pedicectomy. Our 4-year experience by Dr. Bhagwan, BC, International Journal of Surgery Science, 2019.
Okay. Apurva is okay? Anybody, anything?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, fine.
Okay. Have you seen any other journal?
Yes, sir.
No. Just show it.
Have you compared it? Yeah, please.
Sir, another journal is the use of steroid for facial nerve paralysis after pedicectomy, a systemic review.
Just show it in speed, because I asked him to see one another journal because that's why I was sitting. This is the commonest complication and we are interested in that. Remember, phrase and parotid gland fistula are not that common, but facial nerve palsy is the commonest. Okay. Actually, what I wanted, incidence of facial nerve palsy in other studies. Actually, anyway, continue, please.
In this study, they compare the review of literature to assess the efficacy of corticosteroid in treating the post-parotidectomy facial nerve palsy.
Very good. You have chosen a good also, I say, because that's what we normally do. We usually do 2 things. Either we give a steroid or we give stimulation, Faradic current. Those are the 2 things, and with anti-inflammatory, right? Yes. And because the most of them are transient, results are good. Only problem will arise when there is a permanent damage. Okay.
Sir, they compare 2 studies. In study 1, methods is randomized control trial. Patient undergoing the parotidectomy, 44 patient. They exclude the direct facial nerve invasion of the facial nerve requiring sacrifice and reconstruction, and incidental cutting of the facial nerve are the excluded. Intervention started by day 1 or day 2 operatively. The reducing dose of oral prednisolone 50 mg per day for 5 days, followed by 30 mg per day for 3 days and 10 mg per day for 2 days. And to the control group, placebo group received the lactose with a similar formulated dose. Assess the post-operative immediately, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, and the 6 month. Results: overall recovery times from the facial nerve paralysis at 3 months, 84% had fully recovered. At 6 months, 98% had fully recovered. Prednisolone versus placebo recovery at 1, 3, and the 6 month, it is minimal difference. P-value greater than 0.1, not significant. One patient risk of bias method of randomization is not specified, and other confounding factor group comparable demographically and extent of post-operatively facial nerve paralysis. However, tumor size, type, and type of parotid surgery not compared in between intervention and placebo groups.
Very good. Excellent. So what does it say?
What is the
it-
meaning?
What is meaning of all your, that's the journal reading. What does it mean?
It means that the dose of the prednisolone and the placebo group, this no difference between the group, no meaning of
agreed.
prednisolone.
Yes, there is no role of prednisolone. We give for our satisfaction and patient satisfaction. If it is a transient nerve palsy, it will come around within 6 months. That also tells you if it is not back in 6 months, it is unlikely to be back. These are the 2 points you should understand. You understand? Most of them recover within 3 months. You can wait up to 6 months. And if it does not recover after 6 months, then you need to do something for that. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
That is the why I wanted. Excellent study. Next, come on. Yes.
The next is similar study, but it is based on dexamethasone. They give
Yes.
the higher dose of dexamethasone and lower dose of dexamethasone, 0.51 mg per kg and 1.41, depending upon the type of the surgery, superficial and total peritectomy. But they also they also want to get a similar result, and the time of fully recovery of the facial now in the placebo group 60 days versus dexamethasone 150 days.
Okay.
So placebo is better.
Thing. Placebo is better. That
No
means there is
therapeutic-
no role of steroid. You should understand.
No
That's
therapeutic-
actually I wanted to convey that message.
Yes, sir.
You understand? There is, he has written, there is no therapeutic advantage of any kind of steroid in a transient facial nerve palsy. Now,
Yes, sir.
if at all, I don't know whether there is any study like this or not, that if at all, the principle is that it will prevent the late involvement of facial nerve, but it has not been proven. So this is the message we want to convey. There is no role of steroid. I also give. I am not saying that I am by, but that is the principally. If it is going to recover, it is going to recover. Understand this point very well.
Yes, sir.
Just one question, sir. What was
Yes.
the dose of prednisolone which you mentioned? Dose of prednisolone?
Here it is that he has written. You just read it. Show it, beta.
Just show me.
Sir,
Reducing dose.
50 mg
Okay.
per day for 5 days, 30 mg per day for 3 days, and 10 mg per day for 2
Okay.
days.
Okay.
We give it little differently. It varies surgeon by surgeon.
It
We
varies,
usually
sir.
start 5 milligram, 1 QDS for 10 days, 5 milligram, 1 TDS for 10 days, then OD for 10 days, BD for 10 days, 1 OD for 10 days, something like that.
Varies.
1 month to 1.5 months. That it varies.
It varies.
But the principally, it doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't make any difference.
Either time it is going to recover, it is going to recover. That's the
Okay.
basically everybody says, but everybody gives prednisolone. That is also there.
Everybody
Okay.
is giving, sir.
Yes, that's the point. Yes. Okay.
Next.
Based upon current based evidence, the use of corticosteroid to ameliorate the post-operative facial nerve paralysis cannot be recommended. It is likely that pre-operative and intraoperative factors play a more important role in the risk of permanent facial nerve paralysis. Moreover, the majority of the cases of the FNP are likely to recover, an important factor to consider in pre-operative counseling of the patient.
Very good. That's the question I wanted to raise. The point is, this is the last line is the most important line. If you are aiming to be a parotid surgeon, the first thing you explain to the patient, because that is the most important thing, that 80%, if at all develop, will recover. That is the last thing you say. But you should say that 50% chances are that you may have a temporary facial nerve palsy. This is a very good, important message. Second, go back one slide. Still one more. The last, forward, one slide forward. No, forward, backward જાય છે તું બેટા. Go forward. This is the one. Median time to complete recovery of facial nerve function was shorter in placebo group.
Yes, sir.
That is 60 days. So up to 3 months, chances are that patient will recover.
Yes, sir.
You understand? This thing you should keep in mind. Very important message. Okay. I think this is completed. Good. This was good. You have chosen a very good. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Fine. Apurva, should we conclude? Last. Go ahead. That's it, I think. Good.
Okay.
Okay, it was excellent. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good.